One of your next functions would be this. One of them would be a V shape. I'm going to do it backwards this time. I'm going to say, here's a V shape. Would you write the equation, please? Do you remember the V? It's not x squared. All right, write it down. Here's like an answer bank. You know it's not x squared. We just did that one, and it was a u. Square root of x, that's one of them. And the last one is absolute value of x. This one was this one. Who had that locked in? All right, good. Then the last one is that square root. What does a square root look like? It looks like this. You know how I know? Well, realistically, because I've done it so many times that I just have it memorized. But how could I know? I could put in some key points, like if I put in 0, I get 0. If I put in 1, I get 1. I put in 4, square root of 4 is 2. And this starts to develop. As soon as that starts to develop, you can be like, oh yeah, that's that ramp one. All right, then here's the fourth function. And by the way, when you hit pre-calc, there's 12 functions that you've got to know. But we mostly deal in 4. And the fourth one is y equals x to the third. Make a little xy chart. I'll show you what it looks like. Now, if I start it, some of you are going to be like, oh, so it's just exactly like x squared. But here's the thing. It doesn't just go up on the other side, because when you put in a negative number like -2, you know when you square it, it turns positive? When you put it to the third power, it stays negative. So that's why this one does this. Okay, so this is kind of like a parabola, except one of the sides goes down. It goes down into the negatives, because your answers can be negative. All right. So, how could you have possibly known this? If you had never been introduced to x to the third, you could still have made points. I'd like you to put in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Take a second, make the chart for that. Top skill on the test. If I had to pick only one thing to be good at for this next test, it would be making a chart like this. The number one thing. It can save you on like 5 problems on the test. Can you stick numbers in the function, find points? Just to make sure you're on the right track, when you stuck in -2, you put it here, and then you go, oh, so y equals -2 to the third, which is negative, because negative times negative times negative is -8. So your first point should have been -2, -8. Raise your hand if you were doing it right. Okay, good. Keep going and get those 5 points. I don't even need you to graph them, because I know what it looks like. It looks exactly like this. For those just arriving, start with a blank notability doc, and we are finding points on a new parrot function. Stick in -1 into x to the third. I'll erase this to make it easier to see the problem. Henry, what did you get when you stuck in -1? This one right here. Henry Nichols.
I got just -1.
You are correct.
Because -1 times -1 is just +1, but if you times the -1 by it again, it's just -1.
There you go. You multiplied -1 by itself 3 times. Okay. Then if I put in 0, I get 0. That's a really easy one because anybody knows 0 to the power of anything is still 0. And then 1. 1 goes in. When I say goes in, I mean you stick it there. I like to either put it above it or below it. And 1 to the third is 1. And then 2 goes in, and 2 to the third is 8. And those are my points. And if you graph them, they would be like right here, right here, right here, and right there. And those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points are what you'd need to get credit on the test. All right, so that's one topic, is can you make points on a graph? It's huge. If you don't know this one, you literally can't pass the next test. All right, next one. Here's one that's been moved. I don't even care what it looks like right this second, but do you know which way it's been moved? Like, for example, left 5 is totally wrong. Up 4 is totally wrong. But that kind of answer. Would you please write down what you think this does?
It's so easy. It's so fun.
So you catching on to these yet? Like, so I hope by now, like the first time I did this, the first 3 kids I asked which way this moved all did it wrong. Like literally 3 in a row. I called on 3 random kids. Even after explaining it, they all did it wrong. I understand, because it's so confusing, because it's on the inside, and it's the opposite of what you would think. Remember that deal where this part's counterintuitive? Yeah. So you should be thinking -4 is like over here. So that's to the left, but it's actually to the right 4. Raise your hand if you had right 4. Good. This one, up 5. New thing yesterday was, what if I slapped a negative on the outside in the front? I'm going to actually erase my equal sign here just to make it really clear. Y equals, if I put a negative in front. I hope you remember that the official word for that is reflection. I know some kids are going to write flip. I haven't found out yet. We're going to meet on Friday while you guys are having a free day. One of our meetings is about things like that. Are we going to agree that it's okay if a kid says flip, or are we going to play hardball and it has to be the word reflection? But either way, know the word reflection, because even if I can accept flip, it's not the right way to say it. It's reflection. And then what kind of reflection? Yes, vertical reflection. Very good. So that's a vertical reflect. Okay. Why is it vertical? I gave you high-vo for that reason. Horizontal inside, vertical outside. And that is clearly on the outside, and that is therefore a vertical reflect. Now, sometimes they will say over the x-axis or over the y-axis. Those are way harder because you have to think, like, if I'm going over the x-axis, that's like a reflection that goes this way. And then you got to look at it and go, oh, that's vertical. So over the x-axis, that's vertical. But I even have to draw them out to make sure I know which one's which. But vertical and horizontal words are so much easier, because if it's on the outside, it's vertical. And if it's on the inside, it's horizontal. All right. So what if I don't give you the equation? What if I give you the picture? And I say, look, it's a V shape that has been shifted this way 4 spots. You should be able to tell me the equation then. Instead of telling you the equation and then asking you to graph it, this time it's like Jeopardy. I'm giving you the answer. What was the question? So many different ways we can ask questions on the test. I'm trying to make sure you're ready for all of them. Try to write me that equation. It's a good question. It's Wednesday of next week. Yes?
I have a personal question. So for this, why is it counterintuitive?
That is a good question. I don't have time to answer you right now. You personally come up and ask me in the end of the hour and I'll happily show you. All right. 8:14.
Yeah, exactly. It's a U would be X squared. What's it? I'm gonna see if I can get on it.
All right. So you should have said that's the absolute value graph, Mr. Server, but it's been moved to the right 4. There's your answer. Do you get, you'd have to know the V shape was absolute value, and then you'd have to know that the move to the right 4 thing goes on the inside.
The outside would be up, right? Up or down?
Yeah, if you put the 4 out here, you said it went up 4, and it didn't go up 4. Okay. I need to know. How many of you had that one exactly right without me? All right, it's about half of you. So one more like that. It's the function I just gave you. This guy. Except it's been moved. So it's like that. Y equals, or f of x equals, what? It's the new one for the day. Hardest question I've done all hour. And I'm making it really clear that the whole thing has been moved, and you should be able to tell which way.
I have a question. Well,
Yep.
what is the unit of the green point? Or I guess with the measurement? Like how?
So that green point used to be at the origin,
Yeah.
and now it's up. Oh, how far up?
Yeah,
I get
how
what
far,
you're
yeah.
saying. We're going to say that that is up 1 mark. So I'll just tell you the name of that point. That is the point 0, 1. That tells you the unit as you ask. That's a fair question. All right. Y equals x to the 3rd, but it got shifted up 1. Who had that one? All right. Good. Do you get, it's up 1 from where it used to be, see? Moved up 1. Okay. All right. So, last thing is domain and range. We've been reviewing it now. I think this is the 4th day of review on this. So by now you should know what domain means. If you know what it means, don't even write the answer. What does it mean? Like, act like you're making notes for the test, which you kind of are right this second. What does domain mean again? Don't say it. Write it. You can abbreviate it if you want. And what does range mean again? Dylan Osberg, what does domain mean?
Left to right.
Correct. Are there any arrows on my graph? Yes. Does that mean it keeps going?
Yes.
Does that mean infinity is involved?
Yes.
Yes. Good. That doesn't mean all the answers are infinity, although sometimes they are. All right, range is low to high or down to up. You have to start with how low it goes. If you have it backwards, I have to mark it wrong. It's one of those math things. You always have to have the smaller number first in these. That has to be the smaller number. All right, so here we go. How far left does this go? That will continue down and to the left forever. So negative INF or a sideways 8. Parentheses, because you never touch it.
how far to the right does it go? This is saying I will go up and to the right forever. So I'm going to use the infinity symbol. You could use either, parenthesis. And then for my other one, how low does it go? Negative infinity to how high does it go? Infinity. There we go. Domain and range.
All right, now you have a ridiculous amount of work time. Why? Because I have printed off, and I really, really think that this is good to do on paper with a, you know, like a pencil, to actually dig in and graph a whole bunch of these things. So, I have concern that when you hit a problem like this, that some people are just going to go like, I don't know how to graph that. And I've told you, this will do every graph ever. XY chart it. Now, again, a common mistake here is kids will just go 0, 1, 2. Nope, not a great idea. Why not? Because sometimes your numbers are going to be so big they go off the graph. So instead of just putting in 0, 1, 2, look and see what could you start with strategically that would make the inside small. What do you think? 3 is correct. 3 would be a good call, because then you could go 3 minus 3 is 0, 0 squared is 0, 0 plus 5 is 5, 3, 5. And then things that are near 3 are going to work, like 2 and 1 and negative 1. Remember how I said always put in a negative? The reason is if you don't put in a negative, you'll have nothing on this side of the graph. If you never put in x's and negative anything, it'll be vacant over there. And then what if your graph is like this, and you're like, well, I don't see the rest of it. Well, it's because you didn't put any negative numbers in, and now you know it's a square root graph. You don't want to be blind in this area of the graph, so always use a negative number. All right. So there's my pro tips. Now you have a whole bunch of time. I think you're going to finish it in class and have leftover time to do other things. This is work time, so you are allowed to have a phone out. That's all I got for you for today.